Hello, this is Monica Sawyer. Welcome to Real Estate Investing for Women, where we focus on all aspects of real estate investing, including strategies, mindset, emotional mastery, money smarts, and so much more to ensure your success. If you'd like to learn my personal favorite investing strategy, just go to blissfulinvestor.com. You can also listen to this episode on the Real Estate Investing for Women podcast on iTunes. Now, let's welcome our guest. Today, I am so excited to welcome to our show our guest, Michelle Bosch. Michelle is the co-founder of Orbit Investments and a full-time real estate investor since 2002. She has bought and sold over 4,000 pieces of real estate and built the third largest land investment and auction company in the United States, bringing that company successfully into the 8-figure revenues in a matter of 18 months. Wow. Through the recession, she positioned Orbit Investments for rapid growth in the single family and multifamily investing space with over $40 million in assets under management. She is also the creator of the nationally recognized Land Profit Generator Program, yay!
Yes.
Focusing on teaching others how to invest in land, and has created over 145,000 followers via the Forever Cash podcast radio show, landprofitgenerator.com, ultimateboardroom.com, and social media channels.
Yes.
Her businesses, I know, yay! Her businesses have been featured in Inc., Fox, NBC, ABC, and Forbes, and she holds an MBA in Business and Finance from Thunderbird Global School of International Management, the world's #1 graduate school in international management. Wow, that is quite a bio, Michelle. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I wasn't sure that you were going to use the whole thing, but yeah, that's a whole enchilada right there.
It was so funny because you're like jumping in. Yay, this is exciting. It's awesome.
Thank you so much, Monica, for having me. It's an honor to be here with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So why don't you tell us, Michelle, a little bit about your story, how you got going and started doing all this amazing stuff?
Yeah, it is my pleasure. It's very, it sounds like a, amazing bio, but at the end of the day, we all have to have, faith in the small. We started small with very humble beginnings. Both my husband and I are not originally from the U.S. We're both immigrants. I am originally from Honduras. He's originally from Germany. We came here to study. We decided to stay here, got jobs, and basically found companies that were willing to sponsor our working visas and eventually our permanent residency or green cards. And we got jobs, 100% travel. We absolutely hated it. And we thought, oh my goodness, we've spent all this money on an MBA, on a degree, and the promise is that, you're going to go and get a job and live the American dream. And we were far from living the American dream. We had, living paycheck to paycheck. Yes, a glamorous life for about 3 months, and then traveling 100% gets old. And working 60, 80-hour weeks, for someone else, as a consultant, in a client side was not necessarily our idea of how I thought, that end goal was supposed to look like. And so we started looking for something else to do. We, like I said, we're both not from here. We came here with 2 suitcases to our name and hearts full of dreams. And part of those dreams were, getting the job. But like I said, it wasn't entirely fitting the picture of what we thought we were going to be doing in terms of having freedom of money, time, relationships and purpose, and living out those 4 freedoms. And really, it was as a result of a deep discontent with, our life back then, which was comfortable, but it was comfortably miserable.
Which I think is how so many people live.
Yes,
comfortably
exactly.
Miserable. And they don't feel miserable. They're like, I'm fine. But there's a difference between I'm fine to, oh my God, my life rocks, right? Exactly. It's a completely different thing. But we don't know that when we're stuck in comfortably miserable.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, my family back home had, had some experience in real estate with a commercial property. And so I knew about, passive cash flow from back home. And I'm like, well, let's start looking at real estate. And, when everyone thinks about real estate, the very first thing that comes to your mind, at least for us, it was like, well, let's look at single family homes. Perhaps we can get a home, wholesale it, or rehab it, flip it, make some money, and have that be kind of like a side hustle, because we couldn't let go of our jobs. Our jobs really were the ticket to a permanent residency here. So we couldn't just leave our jobs. And so we put a junker under contract. We realized very quickly that we're way over our heads, that, we had no idea on how to estimate repairs, how to estimate, a new kitchen, flooring, which had foundation issues, of course, roofing, that we were going to probably have to, if nobody took our wholesale special, or, that we were going to have to probably look for, money partners and have holding costs, and then eventually, secure probably traditional financing, and so on and so forth. And it's not like we didn't have bad credit. We just had no credit because we were not originally from here. So there's a lot of moving pieces. And to cut the story short, we decided, okay, we're not doing this. We're pulling out, during our due diligence period. But we came across something that was very interesting to us, Monica. And I think here's where I think that a lot of it is your perspective and the immigrant advantage. I always talk about the immigrant advantage being that you have, number one, zero fear of hard work because you're willing to create a better world than the one you left. And then number two, that you see opportunities that others perhaps missed. And what we came across here in the US was a concept that was completely revolutionary to us, in that both in Germany and in Honduras, people do not lose their properties to property taxes. And so I found out about tax liens and tax deeds. I went to Sonoma County to a tax deed, which means they're auctioning off a property that has been delinquent 5 years or more. And what I noticed is that most of the properties that were coming for auction, which is incredibly competitive, by the way, were pieces of land. And I'm like, wow, these people have, decided mentally, have checked out and let these properties go, probably years before this is coming to auction. Why don't we, and my husband and I were like, why don't we just send them a letter and try to see if we can get some of this vacant land before, it goes to auction? Because I saw it going for good numbers, for way above what it was due in back taxes. And so we perfected what we call our proven performance letter, over the years. It took us like about 3 years to really, perfect our methodology and really split test every sentence, and, and the whole process of buying from, from the lead all the way to closing on, on a property and having actual profit been made. And I'm like, okay, let's put the pedal to the metal. This is it. We're able to get, properties to this day now, ourselves, and not just ourselves, but our clients as well, our students, are able to get properties for 5 to 25 cents on the dollar. We get, for every 750 to 1,000 pieces of mail that we send out, we get anywhere between 6 and 15 calls. Yeah, for every 100 offers, about 3 deals. And so those are amazing conversion rates when it comes to comparing that to the house flippers. The house flippers need to send 10,000 pieces of mail in order to be able to hopefully get one deal. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so for us, it was a gap in the industry that basically others overlook, that others don't care to explore. Because to be frank, if you go to any real estate investment conference right now, anything that people are gonna think of is have to do with rehabbing, with wholesaling a home, with multifamily, small multifamily, large multifamily, commercial property, notes. I mean, nobody talks about land. I mean, dirt is something that is just so way out there for people. And like I said, that's the opportunity that we saw, that we were in a blue ocean, no competition. And that we could get these properties very, very cheap, and that we could turn around and sell them very quickly, because we were getting them so cheap. We could sell them for 60, 80% of market value. And so we specialize in 3 types of properties. We buy properties that are infill lots in the cities, that are in the path of growth, or that are in recreational areas. And so this is kind of how we started. You know, the first year we did 60 deals. The second year we did about 100 deals. Then by that time, our green cards were coming and we're like, oh my goodness, we can let go of our jobs, you know? And we actually didn't put a 2 weeks notice. It was more like a 3-month notice, because I've always thought you always want to leave the door open with someone that has, you know, given you a hand. And we were both immensely grateful to our companies, you know, for having, you know, given us the opportunity to really stay in this country, you know, permanently, forever, legally.
Yeah.
And
How long
so,
had you worked for each of them?
5 years.
Right. So that's great too, because they sponsored you. They also got really good high performance out of you.
Yeah.
And so it was really a win-win. And I
Yeah.
love those stories, right?
Yeah. And so we decided to go at this full time. The next year we did about 150 deals, and that was with us, you know, doing this full time. And what we noticed is that we were again at a point where we were just as tired, just as exhausted, just as putting the number of hours that we were putting in our jobs, we were putting it into the business. And we were like, okay, do we shrink in order for us to have the freedom of time that we have? Because we were making good money, but we didn't have any freedom of time. Or do we expand, you know, so that we can have a team that help us leverage our time? And that's kind of like what we decided for. We went for expansion. We hired a team. That next year we did our first auction. We sold about 200 pieces of land in one day. And we used to do those once a quarter. And we continued doing that even through the recession. And what that allowed us, Monica, is to have in an incredibly privileged situation. When 2008, 2009 came around, a lot of people were losing their shirts. And what we were having is a situation that we were sitting on a ton of cash and a ton of liquidity from our cash flips. You know, flips are anywhere between $5,000 and $20,000, you know, for each piece of land. And we can either flip it for cash, or we can flip it using seller financing, which means somebody, for example, I buy a property for $1,000. I sell it for $20,000. Somebody gives me $2,000 down, so I have recouped my entire investment. And then they make $300, $400 payments for the next 5-10 years. And so that's how we've been able to actually make land cash flow. You know, at some point we had over $70,000 in passive cash flow, $12 million in notes just from land. And so it was our time, you know, it's like doing the right strategy at the right time in the market. And it was our time to basically start allocating some of the cash profits, because our land continues to this day to be our cash machine, and putting those profits into single family homes. And we went and bought, like, you know, we went crazy shopping, because in Phoenix, you could buy in 2009, it was the bottom of the market. We could buy, you know, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home for 40, 50,000, put in maybe 5-10 grand, and then, you know, rent it for $900 to $1,100. Now those properties have quadrupled, you know, in price. And we've actually, you know, sold some and bought in other markets where we could buy them again for 40, 50 grand and so on, and do the same thing over again. And then back in, I would say 2016, we were like, okay, we're doing this amazing thing, because the end goal has always been, at the end of the day, passive cash flow. We call it, in my house, we actually call it forever cash. You know, there's one-time cash from flips. There's temporary cash from notes, you know, in the land. But then the ultimate, the holy grail, in my opinion, of all cash flows is that forever cash, you know, that comes in forever. And so we decided, okay, how can we start not looking at just one door at a time, but 100 doors at a time? And that's when we started looking into multifamily. We now have 4 projects. We are almost coming full circle with one of them, where we basically purchased, totally, you know, improved efficiency, operating it at a high level, increased market rents. Any deferred maintenance that was there with the property is now taken care of. And we're looking to sell it right now. And so we're coming full circle with that one, with our very first project, which is 94 units, back from 2016, from a purchase in 2016. So we've been able to do, as we grew as investors and our sophistication and understanding, you know, grew, we were able to kind of like, you know, go up asset classes. But to be frank, land it's to me my darling, because it is the cornerstone of our wealth. It has been so transformational to us, Monica, as not just like real money in my bank account, but as individuals, as people, as entrepreneurs, I mean, nothing will sculpt your spirit like, even if it's a small deal where maybe your spread is $3,000-$5,000, like going through the process of, of having the courage, talking to a seller, talking to a buyer, figuring out the documentation pieces, how to close on it, how to market. There's nothing like that to really sculpt your character and really help you become a better person in all aspects of life, truly.
Wow.
So that's kind of that's kind of the story.
Yeah, just a little bit. Wow. So a couple of questions I have for you.
Yeah.
First of all, where do you live? Where are you located?
I live in Phoenix, Arizona, actually Paradise Valley.
Okay.
I look at beautiful mountains here. I'm 5 minutes from the preserve, from the mountain preserve and a hiking trail. We love the outdoors. And now is the time to be here. Usually June through September, we try to escape the heat.
It gets pretty
from
hot.
Germany. So we have a yearly pilgrimage to Europe. And it's all, I think part of it is from, leveraging our time, of course, with team, but also finding asset classes. And in the beginning, an asset class that we could really wrap our mind around and that could put our family first and could give us, like I said in the beginning, those 4 freedoms. We're all looking for freedom of time. We're all looking for freedom of money, but also of relationships and of purpose. And why I say that the land business is giving me also, that freedom of purpose is that we're now teaching that to others, and I'm able to give back in some way, shape, or form, and pour my heart into developing, a person into, from going from an employee mentality into an entrepreneurial mentality, just using land as a vehicle because it's just so simple.
Yeah. And that's actually been a lot of my purpose too, I use, my favorite vehicle is real estate. I'm a buy and hold person, but my journey, my message is really about living a life of bliss, which is all about the 4 freedoms that you talk about. And for me, that emotional freedom too, like really living a blissful life. So we're so aligned. I really love that. It's beautiful.
Yes.
So now where do you invest? Do you invest in Phoenix or do you invest all over the place?
So land, we invest all across the U.S. only because, to be frank, we don't need to look at the land. Back in the day, there was no Google Earth. Now we can do everything through Google Earth. I don't need to look at any single piece of dirt whatsoever or run down to negotiate with a seller with the land. These are people that have never been approached by anyone ever. So they are happy to, take my offer whenever I'm ready to give them an offer. And so land, we do all across the US. In single families, there's 3 markets, and multifamily, 3 markets that we specialize as well, so that we can really understand those markets really well. We can really understand the employment base, and really become masters, because, I'm all about mastery. Like repetition creates the possibility to scale, and that repetition also gives you the opportunity to really do something over and over again until you really mastered it, and so we write, on those two asset classes. When it comes to single families and multifamily, we like to focus on those 3 markets only.
Got it. Okay.
So
my big question about land is, if you buy it on 5 to 25 cents on the dollar, why didn't they, and where are you going to sell it? Who do you sell it to? Because why didn't they just sell it?
I know this is the story of our lives. It's beyond me, but people will sell at that time, at that amount of money or that level of discount, because they decided that they were going to purchase 2 pieces of land, one in Florida and one in Arizona. And they decide to retire in Arizona. And now their piece of property in Florida is there. Their kids don't want it, or they pass away, the heirs don't want it, or there's a divorce and they need to get out, or whatever you can think of. I mean, there's just endless reasons why, but circumstances are always difficult for people, and there's always reasons, for money and so on and so forth. And why they didn't list it with a realtor. Many actually have, and realtors just absolutely suck. when it comes to selling pieces of land. You cannot put in the MLS a piece of dirt with 2 corner markers and expect to sell it. You have to sell a dream when you're selling land. You need to sell the possibility of what could be in that piece of land, and create your listings and your marketing, with a completely different perspective than when you're selling a home, which is easily stageable and with good lighting, you can make it look attractive and pretty. With land, you have to be much more creative to be able to move it quickly and for the prices that you want. Yeah. So what was the second question again?
Well, it was mostly just how do you sell it? Like,
yeah. So
you?
Usually infill lots, our buyers are developers. So it's a quick look up. If it's looking up on Google, association of builders in the city that you're in. And very quickly you can get a list of builders that you could send your property and market your property to. If it's an infill lot, neighbors will want your property. We have what we call our, proven neighbor letter. 50% of all our sales and our client sales come from the neighbor letter. You can sell on Facebook Marketplace, on Craigslist, on Zillow, on LandWatch, on LandFlip. There's so many places where you can do it actually for free. You don't even have to pay to market the property.
And they're easy to sell?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
If your listing is looking nice, if your listing is a piece of property, it's not gonna sell, just a piece of dirt with 2 corner markers. But if you say, selling 2 acres of paradise for 40% under market value, and that's your heading, versus just here's my 2 acres of, land in such and such county or such and such city. And then you start building the dream of like, look at all the amenities. We're about an hour away from the main city of such and such. These are the homes and developments that are happening in the area. And you put views of that. And these are some of the hospitals and some of the, employment centers. And you then go narrow and narrow your focus and go, maybe your picture number 5 or number 6 is the actual piece of dirt. And then you finalize by saying, hey, and I offer either 40% market value, or we could talk about seller financing with just a low down payment, and monthly payments of X. And all of a sudden you've really open your pool of potential buyers when you open, when you have the opportunity for them to, buy with seller financing, because maybe not everyone is going to have $20,000 just sitting around, but maybe they'll have $2,000 to give you as a down payment. And then you can start creating those notes and that passive cash flow.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it is fantastic. I mean, right now, what has been off the hook has been Facebook Marketplace, out of all places,
I've been hearing that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
So talk about structuring cash flow in all 3 asset classes that you invest in. So you do land, single family homes, and multifamily, large multifamily. So talk about how you're structuring your cash flow to get that from each one of those.
Okay. So for example, for us, when we started our business, we were, again, after that forever cash and after those 4 freedoms. So we kind of like have broken up into different stages, our level of freedom in each of those 4 areas. And our first level is always like, what is what we call our security plan? Like, if my security plan of my lifestyle is, a lifestyle that cost me $5,000, how can I create with passive cash flow, say from land or from houses or from multifamily, $5,000? And $5,000 is, easily 10, 20 properties of $20,000 each, where I'm getting maybe $400 or $500 in monthly payments. That's easily doable, in a matter of maybe a year and a half to build that passive cash flow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of like our first milestone. How can we get, the first $5,000 of our lifestyle to be paid? And for everyone, that security is it will be different. But when we started, we had nothing. So $5,000 for us was like a great, that was a great lifestyle. It even afforded a vacation if we wanted, mm-hmm. once a year, and so on and so forth. And then we moved on to, what our second plan, which is our comfort plan. Okay. And that comfort plan for everyone will be different. For us was like about $10,000. How can we create $10,000 of passive cash flow either with the land, with the single families, or with the buildings, how can we build up to that, such that all our, lifestyle is being paid for that. And luxury, now we're working on our luxury, plan. And for that, it's going to be different for everyone. Maybe someone, wants to have live la vida loca and, fly private. And maybe that idea of passive cash flow for you is $100,000 a month, maybe for some of you, 20 grand would be fine, so it depends. But for us, we gave ourselves personal numbers of what each of those would look like. And in the beginning, like I said, we used land, and then we transitioned, some of those land profits and cash flow from the land into the single families, which we continue to own to this day, and now into the multifamily. Because at the end of the day, one drawback from land is that you cannot, there's no benefits when it comes to taxes, like there is on multifamily, where you can use a lot of the depreciation, to really shelter and offset. What we use is we use a lot of the depreciation from the multifamily and the single family to offset a lot of our active income that comes from the land flips. So we get the benefit of both worlds. Yeah. So that's kind of like how we've structured. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. I've never heard it done that way. Everybody that I've spoken to that does land, they just love land and they will not touch anything else because everything else is so much higher maintenance than land is. But from my perspective, land just wasn't that exciting, at least in the past. I've looked at it several times. You're making it intriguing for me. So I have to look at it again. You and I are going to get to talk offline on this.
That's good.
But interesting that you would bring in the other asset classes so that you could take the tax benefits and offset your profits. That gives you a lot more income. And it's a real simple way to do that, you know? Yeah. So,
and it's still in an industry that I understand now intimately well, that I understand really well. Like I don't understand the stock market. I don't understand, the foreign exchange. I don't understand cryptocurrency, but I do understand, dirt. And I understand creating a home in a first and class community, for someone, such that they can continue paying rent and there's that pride of ownership in a community. And so I understand how to do those things, but I don't understand a lot of other things. So I'm like, it's like sticking to your lane. There's so many shiny objects out there, Monica, that it's an exercise in discipline in terms of like, putting blinders on. I always tell my husband whenever he comes like sometimes home, oh my gosh, so-and-so is doing this. And I'm like, is that a carousel ride? I call it a carousel ride whenever you like those shiny objects, you get on the carousel, you go for a wonderful ride. It's fun, for the 3 minutes that it lasts or 3 months or whatever you're doing, you get off the carousel and you're in the exact same spot financially. You know what I mean? I'm like, if it's one of those, I'm like, I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah. Well, and you made some really, really good points here. First of all, I always say there's a million ways to make $1 million in real estate. Yeah. We have a lot of options. Yeah. So the very first thing is to get to know real estate, but you do need to specialize and you need mastery. Yeah. And when you up level what you're doing. So for you started in land, you wanted to use that cash flow in a different way. So you up leveled to single family homes and then to multifamily. But as you're up leveling,
the team is also up leveling.
I'm sorry?
So that the team is also up leveling, Monica.
That's right.
So that you can really have a head to the horse that you've mastered. Right. And that runs on its own before you can go and get diluted or, with something else. That's the key.
And the point that I'm trying to make is simply that when you decide you need to do something different, don't suddenly jump to Forex trading or to Bitcoin or to, you go from, I own land to now I'm going to run a syndication project on this apartment building. You don't know anything about it. So you need to step into it and allow your mastery to be the foundation for those next levels that you go to. So you want to just make sure that you're climbing with mastery rather than starting on the ground floor for every single thing that you do. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I really love about your story. And that's true with building a team too. You start with one employee and then you might grow to 100, but you got to start with one. You're not going to, in general, unless you're a big corporation, buy another company with 100 employees if you've never had employees, right? Yeah. So you want to make sure that when you are deciding to grow, like so many of the ladies that are listening are just beginners. Uh-huh. So they're trying to figure out, where am I going to start that path towards mastery?
Yeah.
Right? Maybe it's going to be land. Maybe it's going to be single family homes. I do BRRRR, where I rent things out. Right? So what is it that we want to do? And then what is a starting point for that? And the thing that I want to say to the ladies is, where you are today, you're not going to be able to see that next step.
Yeah.
You create mastery where you start, which means it takes a commitment.
Yeah.
It takes a willingness to cry through some nights because things get hard and you don't know everything yet. It takes an understanding that you're going to make mistakes, and that's part of evolution and mastery.
Yeah.
And as you move through that and you become, as Michelle says so eloquently, and I love, your business will turn you into something you didn't know you could be.
Yeah.
And it will be an amazing journey. And sometimes it's really hard.
Yeah.
And it's so worth it. And the thing is that if you've got bliss tools, like what I talk about, you learn to see the hard as a piece of the puzzle, a part of the game. And even though it's stressful, it's part of what you do. It's exciting, right? So you learn to reframe it. But then once you get to mastery, you understand. Now you can look at some other things and you're like, okay, on top of this, what can I build? And I love this image of starting with land and then building a single family home, because that's what you do, right? It's very literal, but in your business, it's more metaphorical, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you go, and that's kind of like playing Monopoly too. You buy land, then you buy a house, then you buy a hotel, then you buy, you know, like that, right? So, but just, and I'm sorry that I'm on my soapbox a little bit here, but ladies, I just want you to hear this, is it's important to start your journey towards mastery and understand all of those pieces, become the person that you want to be and that you need to be to make that successful, and then evolve into the next step of mastery. And that's the way that it goes. You know, I've been in this business 25, 27 years now. And the growth and the learning never stops. But I didn't have all this knowledge today that back when I started. And what if I had waited and not done that, waited for the mastery? You have to grow into the mastery. It's a one-step process at a time that you have to have the full experience.
For sure. I 100% agree with that. We actually talk about, you know, in our ecosystem, we talk about the 4 C's, which are, you know, like you mentioned, the very first one, which is commitment. Commit to one thing. Like if your lane is going to be land, or if your lane is going to be houses, you know, in a specific strategy, commit to that one thing. And what you're going to find is that once you commit, you're going to be like, holy crap, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And you're going to have to muster the second C, which is courage. And you're going to have to muster courage only for a period of time. You're going to go through uncertain times, you know, uncomfortable times, but it's only going to be for a specific period of time. It will pass. It will pass.
Yeah.
And then as you do, and actually, are willing to get your hands dirty, you're going to gain the capability from just doing it, you know, and that's the third C, capability. And once you have the capability, you have the confidence of looking back, wow, look at what I've done. And that gives you the opportunity to go say, oh my gosh, now that I have this confidence, I can go and iterate in zeros and look at properties with, you know, with a zero, with a few more zeros at the end, you know what I mean? And it's like an upward spiral of confidence, of going through those 4 C's, of committing, of killing other options, because if you feel overcommitted, you haven't decided. You know what I mean? So deciding on one thing, mustering the courage, gaining the capability by actually just doing it, getting dirty, you know, doing the hard work. We all have to do it. There's no shortcuts. There's a way to collapse time, which is through mentors, you know, especially when we started on the multifamily side, because we didn't have any mentors for the land. I mean, I don't know of anyone, to be frank, that, you know, back in 2002 was out there teaching land. Otherwise, I would have invested. But by the time we wanted to do multifamily, we invested in a mentor. You know, we invested in someone that was willing to basically bring the deal, mentor us. We put in, you know, our money for the escrow deposit. We did the fundraising and so on and so forth. And it has been the best money spent, you know, because this person has helped us collapse time and has basically steered us away from landmines, possible landmines that we would have never, you know, known were there. So, so it takes a little bit of like also sometimes like banking on ourselves and willing to reach out for support. More than likely, once you have found the vehicle, a lot of the answers are not going to come on how-tos and what but from who's, who's that are going to have the what's and the how to's for you, and help you steer you in the right direction. So that's something that I wish I would have focused on much, much earlier, on who's in my life that are going to hold me accountable, that are going to, walk me and just collapse times and help me have less heartache and less headaches, you know what I mean? And so on and so forth, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. So we're almost out of time, so we're going to head towards the end of this part of the show, but I just want to let the ladies know that on Extra, Michelle and I are going to be talking about the details of really how to get a land business going. We've never had anybody cover that in this show, so I'm really excited about that. And we're going to talk about specifics, like how do you pick areas, how do you do a mailing, and all, the specifics on really how to get started. So that's going to be really valuable information, so definitely stay tuned for that. But before we head into our 3 rapid fire questions, Michelle, could you tell people how they can reach you?
Yeah, of course. They can reach me. They can go to michellebosch.com. I'm also on Facebook, Michelle Bosch, Michelle Bosch Official on Instagram. You can also go to, landprofitgenerator.com/bliss. And I know that you're going to also have a link in the show notes. And yeah, in any of those places, you can find me.
Great.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I know that you're offering a free masterclass as a gift to my ladies. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and it's basically a master class on the 5 steps to finding a deal and closing a deal with land. And it's and you can go to landprofitgenerator.com/bliss. And I know that you guys are going to be blown away by just the simplicity of the method, and just how so many of us are looking for that one thing, and we've been looking sometimes in the wrong place, because a lot of I feel like a lot of, especially on the house flipping world, a lot of the stuff out there is not really designed for a beginner. And there's nothing like finding that one thing that where things are going to click, where things align, and where you can really see yourself doing this and getting an ROI very, very quickly. So I'm excited for that.
Nice. I love what Michelle said when we were talking before the show. She says, who I really like to be a hero for is the beginning investor. And I can really see, based on the masterclass and how you talk about this, that you really are. You're a hero to the beginner. And I so appreciate that, Michelle.
Thank you. Yes,
yeah.
that's our mission right now, is to get, if we can touch 1,000 families and turn them into millionaires, bring fathers to become stay-at-home dads, or, allow them to retire a spouse that hates their job, allow them to have, private schooling for their children, or that home that they've always wanted, or moving closer to family, or traveling the world, or extra money for retirement. I'm all for it, and we're already well underway. So it's incredibly fulfilling, to see the stories, especially like I was telling you, inside of our Facebook community, and just seeing people making their dreams come true. Not just, and we're not talking just dreamers, but these are people that are actually doers as well. It's like that have found a higher purpose, a higher why, and therefore there's a higher income as well that correlates with that. Sometimes it's just tapping into that and snapping out of that comfortable misery that we're, sometimes we're in. So
yeah, I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you for the free gift.
Thank you.
And I know I'm going to go download it, so thank you. And then, are you ready for our 3 rapid fire questions?
I am ready. Let's do this.
Awesome. Okay, so tell us one super tip on getting started investing in real estate.
Okay, the first step I'm going to say is that take bold action. And I know that this has been said probably, and it's very overused, but I cannot overemphasize how important it is. Courage loves speed, and if you are sitting there doubting and analyzing and, being stuck in paralysis analysis, nothing happens when you're stuck, things happen when you're moving. So take action and make sure it's an action that is actually bringing you forward. Because sometimes we think, oh, but I'm taking action. I'm setting up my website. I'm setting up my LLC, and that's all fantastic. But that's not what's going to make you money. What's going to make you money is reaching out to sellers, making offers, selling properties. That's what's going to make you money. Those are the three activities that are going to make. So don't be like, thinking that busy movement is actually moving forward. It's good movement. It's better than nothing, but take action, take bold action that scares you and at the same time excites you. That is bold action.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I love that.
So I
love
would
that.
say that's the very first one.
Perfect. And then what is a strategy on being successful in real estate investing?
I think as a strategy on being successful, if you're going to scale, we talked a little bit about it, is to have the discipline to go through the repetition, because the repetition will eventually allow you to bring in team, to leverage your time by leveraging other people's time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the secret to scaling. Otherwise, you're stuck like we were, back in the day, with freedom of money, but no freedom of time. So that definitely is in when I say bring in team, it's not just recruiting them, Monica. It's actually developing leaders within your team. It kind of like at the beginning, it's like, oh my gosh, I just need to find someone that helps me, and you might get a VA, and that's fine. VAs are fine. I'm a big proponent of being all in. If someone is all in my company, I want to be all in with them. And the return on involvement, or ROI, that I get from that person being 100% dedicated to me versus a VA that is dedicated to maybe 3 or 4 different clients. You know what I mean? The ROI, I find it with someone that is full-time there, dedicated for you, that you're building up, that you're not just recruiting, but building up and empowering to make, decisions, with the intentions that you have, that buys into your mission and into your vision, for sure. Yeah.
I love that. And then what would you say is one practice that you do that contributes to your personal success?
Yes, I actually practice something that is called Yoga Nidra. Back in 2011, I actually went through a period of complete burnout, Monica. And burnout is something that we hear about. Let me tell you, it's very real. I was burned out, like mentally, physically, emotionally, and it was not because, oh my gosh, we still needed to get to where we needed to. It was because I had noticed that we had gotten to where we needed to, and I had not given myself the opportunity to really, enjoy and smell the roses, and enjoy that journey. And so one of the practices that I stumbled into was yoga. And within yoga, there's a meditation called Yoga Nidra. You don't even have to sit up in a crisscross applesauce. You can lay down, and it's basically a visualization of relaxation through the body. I love starting my day with that. It includes a little bit of breath work, and I love doing that also in the afternoons before picking up my daughter from school. That way I can let go of whatever crazy energy I've had during the day, you know what I mean? And pick her up completely grounded and centered, because sometimes we can be, pardon my language, you can be complete jerks to the people that we most love. And it's because we're stressed, and that not just helps me with my relationships, but it also helps me with creativity. It has helped me in being more brave and more courageous, because how can you freaking be brave and courageous if you're stressed out of your mind? You know what I mean?
No
so that meditation has been instrumental for me. So I highly recommend it.
Nice. I love that.
Yes.
Perfect. Yay. Well, thank you for that. This show has been truly amazing, Michelle, and I cannot wait to move into extra to get more details. So thank you so much for what you've been offering so far.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Great. Yay. And so ladies, stay tuned. We do have more in extra. Like I said, Michelle is going to be talking about the details, the specifics on how to get started in land. And so I'm really excited to engage in that conversation. I hope you are too. So stay tuned. If you are not subscribed to extra, but would like to be, it's really, really easy. This is what you do. Go to realestateinvestingforwomenextra.com. That's realestateinvestingforwomenextra.com. And then you're just going to subscribe. You get 7 days for free to test the waters and see if you like the content. And then once you become a member, you will get that podcast right wherever you're listening to this podcast. So you don't have to worry about, I need a new app, I need new tools, nothing. It's all right there. You can listen to it. If you're listening to this when you drive or you walk or you're working out or whatever, you can listen to that piece in the same way. So go to realestateinvestingforwomenextra.com to check that out. If you are leaving Michelle and I right now, thank you so much for joining us for this portion of the show. I look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, remember, goals without action are just dreams. So get out there, take action, and create the life your heart deeply desires. I'll see you next time. Bye. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to download my favorite investing strategy, just go to blissfulinvestor.com. See you next time.